Request of Justice from the League of Nations. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, Envoys of the Nations. I would have liked to speak to you in French. But as it is in the Amharic language alone that I can speak my mind from my heart and with all the force of my spirit, I would beg the forgiveness of the General Assembly of the League of Nations for speaking in French. I, Haile Selassie I, Emperor of Ethiopia, am present here today to ask for the imperial justice due to my people and for the help that 52 nations had undertaken to extend to it when they affirmed, 8 months ago, that a war of aggression, in violation of international law, was being waged against Ethiopia. There is no man other than the emperor to present the appeal of the Ethiopian people to these 52 nations. Perhaps this is the first time that a king or president appears before this assembly and addresses it. But it is truly only today that violence of this kind is seen being committed against people who are now falling victim to the aggressors. Furthermore, there has not been seen a previous example of a government that has set out to extinguish methodically and utilizing cruelty, the entire stock of another people, in transgression of a covenant which it has honorably and publicly entered into in the form of a treaty concluded with the nations of the world, to wit that one government was not to deprive another of its country using war and that it was not to exterminate innocent human beings by powerful and toxic poison gas. The reason that I, as Emperor of Ethiopia, have come to Geneva after having fought myself as Commander-in-Chief of my army is to fulfill this highest duty of mine and to defend the Ethiopian people struggling to preserve its independence that has endured for many thousands of years. I pray to God that He may keep the nations of the world from the torment that has been inflicted upon my people and from the vile things of which these chiefs who have followed me here have been witness and which have, indeed, happened to themselves. I shall explain in detail to the representatives of the nations assembled in Geneva who are responsible for the lives of many millions of men, women, and children, about the mortal danger awaiting these creatures and the fate which has overwhelmed Ethiopia. It is only upon Ethiopian soldiers that the Italian government has made war. Above all, it has struck at peaceful people far removed from the battlefield by killing them with terror raids and exterminating them altogether. At the beginning of the war, in 1928, equals 1935, Italian airplanes launched tear gas bombs upon my armies. These bombs did not harm them seriously, as the soldiers knew when these bombs were being released and how to scatter them until the wind had disposed of the gas. After this, the Italian airplane began to drop eperite gas. Casks containing eperite fell upon the Ethiopian army, but the harm this eperite gas caused was not considerable. The reason for this was that there were only a few soldiers whom the eperite liquid affected, and the cask fell upon the ground as the soldiers and the population realized that they contained poison. When Ethiopia troops had encircled Mekelle, the Italian army commander-in-chief had good reason to feel anxiety about the possible dissolution of the Italian armies, then directed the dropping of eperite in a different position. I now have to reveal this action to the world. A mechanism spraying eperite liquid was installed in the aircraft, and it was arranged that a fine rain bringing death should descend over vast tracts of the country. At one time, 9, 15, or 18 Italian airplanes were going to and from bringing down an unceasing rain of eperite. From the end of turn 1928, equals late January 1936, onwards this death-dealing rain descended uninterrupted upon our soldiers, women, children, cattle, streams, stagnant waters, and pasture. The Italian army commander made the airplane repeat this work of theirs, to extinguish all living creatures and to turn into poison the waters and the grazing grounds. He made this the principal means of warfare. This work of cruelty carried out with some finesse, annihilated people in places far removed from the battlefield and made their country into a desert. The plan was to spread terror and death over most of Ethiopia. This most deplorable scheme was eventually accomplished. Man and beast perished also. The deadly downpour that descended from the aircraft made anyone who touched it fly with torment. Those who drank the water upon which this poisonous rain had settled or ate the food that the poison had touched died dreadful agony. The people who died as a result of the Italian eperite must be reckoned in many thousands. It was to make known to the civilized world the torment inflicted upon the Ethiopian people that I decided to come to Geneva. There is none better qualified than myself and these men who were in the war with me to provide the League of Nations with this indisputable testimony. If Europe reckons this matter to be an accomplished fact, then it is proper to consider this fate that awaits it and which is bound to come upon it. The appeal which my envoy presented to the League of Nations when this whole tribulation descended upon my army and my people has remained without obtaining any reply. My envoys have not been in this war and, as they have not witnessed the afflictions suffered by Ethiopia, I have resolved to come myself to describe the criminal acts perpetrated against my people. It is not necessary, is it, to remind the General Assembly of the League of Nations meeting here today of what has happened to Ethiopia over this time? For the past 20 years, when working first as Crown Prince and Regent of the Ethiopian realm and later as Emperor and leader of my people, I have not ceased striving to obtain for my country the benefits of modern civilization and, in particular, to establish relations of good neighborliness with adjacent governments. With Italy, I concluded a treaty of friendship in 1920, equals 1928, which prohibited the resort to war under any circumstances whatsoever and which provided for any dispute arising between the two governments to be settled amicably and by arbitration, a procedure which the civilized nations of the world have made the basis for the peace of their peoples. In the declaration that the Committee of 13 Governments presented on 25 Mascarum 1928, equals October 6, 1935, it told me expressly that it was of the efforts I had made. The nations had considered that, by her entry into the League and by affording her new confidence that her territorial integrity would not be impaired and her independence not be destroyed, Ethiopia would attain a higher level of civilization than she possessed now. In present-day Ethiopia, there does not appear to be a lack of security and the condition of lawlessness could still be seen in 1915, equals 1923. The country has become more united than before, and the authority of the central government is more respected than in the past. If the Italian government had not created its real plans. The Italian government has confirmed its preparations, for the past 14 years, to undertake what it has now obtained by force. Therefore, it is possible to say that it was doing things to undermine the confidence of the world and it aided and supported the admission of Ethiopia to the League of Nations in 1915, equals 1923, when it concluded the Treaty of Friendship in 1920, equals 1928, and when it signed the Treaty of Paris to outlaw war. The Ethiopian government, however, believed in finding in all these treaties and concluded with great solemnity and fresh confidence that it was possible to accomplish the work it had initiated with all its heart and strength to lead the country on a peaceful path towards civilization. The Walwal conflict occurred in Heater in 1927, equals December 1934. I felt as if a sudden flash of lightning descended from the sky. But it was obvious that Italy wished this quarrel to take place. I did not delay informing the League of Nations of this incident. I requested, therefore, that the matter be looked at according to the text laid down in the 1920, equals 1928, treaty, based on the League's raison d'etre, following the arbitration provisions, and all these various procedures.
Now please stay tuned for the next part of the speech, that will be in the upcoming video. It's a 3-part speech and it is the original translation of the speech that Haile Selassie I delivered at the League of Nations in 1936, so stay tuned and please like, share and subscribe for more videos. Thank you. We thrive together, heart of love.